everyone. My name is Dana, and I'm a registered holistic nutritionist, and this is like a completely spontaneous decision to just show you, give you a little bit insight into what might happen in my head and also in my kitchen, in my tiny little apartment kitchen, if I'm making dinner and I have to think about what am I going to get on the table nice and quick. So first of all, like I say, I haven't even planned this out for you today. So this is completely unscripted. I'm just going to see if I haven't planned something for dinner, if I don't have a meal plan, what is the process between thinking about needing something for dinner and getting dinner on the table. So what I would normally be doing is, so I was going to make some homemade cranberry sauce, and because I wasn't thinking about doing this, so I'm just going to move this off and get that out of the way. And I'm going to see what I'm going to make for dinner. Now, we're an omnivore family, so I do try and focus on being plant-based, but we do also, with a couple people in the family with ADD, ADHD, we do need to get a lot of protein to help us to manage that. So I'm always thinking about protein first. I'm also a postmenopausal mom, so it is also really important for me to maintain my body. I want to maintain it at a certain level of body fat, that I also need to get a certain amount of protein. So I'm always going to be thinking about portions of protein. So this part of your hand is like a portion of protein for someone. For me, that's about a 4-ounce serving. I'm going to need to make sure I get that much solid protein. So you can either use a meat that's that size, or if you're using a vegetable protein, you probably need a slightly bigger portion than that to get enough protein for your body at a meal such as dinner. So I'm going to start with the protein. And today, I have a couple of different options. We get local products. So I have from Full Basket. This is a local neighborhood butcher that I know and that I trust. And we've been using their products quite happily. But today I think I'll make chicken. So I have a package of chicken breasts. This is something that a lot of people eat. So it's also a very concentrated source of protein. So I'm going to center my meal around chicken breasts today. And I've got some organic oranges. I've got some organic lemons. I got some broccoli, and normally I do try and reduce the packaging waste, but again, today this was unplanned, unscripted, and I'm just showing you what I really have today, what it's really going on in my kitchen. There's no pretending that this week that I remembered. What I try and do is I bring these reusable bags to the grocery store and get my produce in these, but I don't always remember. Sometimes I forget. So sometimes things come home in a plastic bag, and then I try and reuse it if I can, but I'm human, so it's not always perfect. So one of the things that I can make with some of these ingredients, you can see that I have 3 broccoli crowns. So I'm not using a lot of the stem because that gives me a little bit of digestive upset sometimes, so I just have broccoli crowns. 1 for each member of the family. We're a 3-person family. So we're going to each get a serving of broccoli that's the size, this size, okay? So you're looking at two fistfuls, okay, is the size of a leafy green. So you can see this is 2 fistfuls, right? So this is a serving. So this is for my son, this is for my partner, my husband, and this is for me. So each of us needs a serving of greens at dinner. So that's that. You get basically a serving right there. I'm always thinking about balancing orange and red and yellow with green in terms of my produce consumption. So I'm going to always grab something green, and I'm always going to make sure I have a red or an orange or a yellow with it, okay? So somehow I'm going to utilize, I want to make sure we're getting lots of vitamin C, so there's lots of vitamin C with this, and that looks good to me. So we're going to do some of that. If you wanted to, if you have these kind of oranges, these also work great. So I may choose to use these instead. It might be a little bit more straightforward with this meal. We're going to see, I think what I'm going to make is something like an orange chicken and broccoli. So that will be Typically something you might find in like a Chinese restaurant, but I'm going to make it a little bit more healthy. But because it's going to be something like Chinese restaurant inspired, the typical thing that I'm going to do here is I'm going to blanch the broccoli. I'm going to saute the chicken, although you can also boil it if you want to avoid oil and frying. And then I'm going to make a sauce that is typically in Asian cuisine. You've got a blend of all the different flavors in one place. You've got salty, sweet, umami, you've got acid, you've got heat, usually all represented in Asian cuisine. And so that balance is really nice. It's a very well received. So the whole family likes it when you balance all that flavor. So I'm going to do that with a sauce today. So maybe I will use my my larger oranges, since I actually think people in the family prefer to eat little mandarins right out of hand. So maybe I'll use these ones for my meal, for my sauce. And along with the orange juice, I will get, we're gluten-free, so I'm using a gluten-free soy. I'll use that, and I'll use some rice vinegar. And I always do a mise en place. And so mise en place, and I don't have a kitchen towel, so I'm going to have to go get that. Okay, so today I'm going to use my my Star Wars themed towel. So a mise en place is something that if you're not an experienced cook, you really want to use. You're going to want to get your hair out of the way. We're cooking here, so I'm going to get our hair out of the way. I have worked in a number of kitchens, and I have been a caterer, I've been a kitchen manager, I've been a hotel kitchen manager, I'm a recipe developer, so I do have my food safe, and you do want to put on your apron. And this apron I have worn many, many, many times. It has one little mark, and the sign of a really good cook is that they can wear their apron and not get it dirty. So and being the nutritionist that I am, I always have a number of vitamins hanging around that I've forgotten to take. So they're there. But this is an apron that I'm going to try and keep clean from beginning to end. And mise en place is where you prepare all of your ingredients before you start cooking. So this is really important to get a meal done that is done correctly. So I usually use these types of little dishes to assist me with my mise en place. And mise en place, if you don't speak French, this is simply something that is left in place for you. So something in place. Put it in place is probably the perfect translation of mise en place. So you've put it in place so that it can help you to be organized for your meal. So I do make sure that I wash all of my produce. In this case, my produce choices are organic, but if it wasn't organic, then I would be potentially wanting to soak my vegetables before using them. I also get the raised without antibiotic chicken and or organic chicken at all times. So generally speaking, our cooking is well thought out, and we do prefer to use a meal plan and then to plan our shopping so that we are extremely mindful about what we buy and where we buy it. But you sometimes also have to trade off all of your higher values and all of the things that you want for also sometimes convenience, because convenience is very important for mental health, for the stress level. So if you have, of course, a difficulty with your finances, there's only so much convenience perhaps that you can afford. But if you can make things convenient without relying on fast food or processed food, then by all means, I understand that can be a very important thing, not just for families, because not everybody has kids or whatnot, but for couples, for couples, for whoever, for whether you're cooking for you and your roommate, or for whomever, I mean, everybody is busy for the most part, and we all need cooking to be less of a stress, especially if you're not a really practiced, very experienced home cook. So, this part of the broccoli is definitely edible. Some people might prefer to keep this part for another use. I do cook it. I just chop it up a little bit. Now, if you have young kids at home, like babies, toddlers, then you may be watching the sodium and you may wonder, can I make a recipe that uses soy sauce? Yes. So this particular recipe doesn't necessarily require you to add salt because you've got the soy sauce, and some people will prefer to add salt. And the need for salt in the body isn't universal. So not everyone needs the same amount of food. Not everyone needs the same amount of sodium. So some people need more sodium, especially if you're following a low carb diet. You may need quite a bit of sodium to balance all of that. So if that is the case for you, just follow what is important, what is good for you. Some people need to reduce their sodium, but if you're doing it for something like high blood pressure, it may be interesting to you to know that studies have shown that actually what's the most important factor in blood pressure management isn't so much the lowering of the sodium as it is the raising of potassium in relation to sodium. So in the world of minerals, there's often a situation where, one or two minerals work together as a team, or they go up and down like on a seesaw. And in the case of sodium and potassium, this is the case. You can often benefit yourself not just by lowering your sodium levels, but by raising your potassium levels. And of course, all fruits and vegetables have potassium, as do some other foods. So getting lots of produce essentially is one easy way of ensuring that you get enough potassium. So my broccoli is chopped into small bite-sized pieces. All right, so there you go. The florets are smallified. All right, and then I'm gonna slice up my oranges. These are great. Not a lot of pith and peel in this case, just a lot of orange. So very, very orangey. I'm gonna get a lot of juice. If you get a little bit less juice in yours, that's okay. You could also use frozen orange juice from concentrate. A lot of people will say, oh, frozen orange juice from concentrate, that's junky, that's not very good. Well, it's not very good as a replacement for water because it's got so much sugar. But if you're using it as a replacement for sugar, it's not so bad at all. So it really all depends when you are using these things and how you're using them. I think that orange juice adds a lovely astringency, a little bit of an acidity, as well as a sweetness, adds moisture. So it can be used in a lot of different ways. In this case, I'm just completely mashing this orange. I am completely destroying this orange and putting as much of the orange pulp in there as possible as well, because I don't like to waste. So I'm squeezing the heck out of it. And I will do that for orange number 2. All right. This one's not so good, a lot more pith. The pith, though, if you eat an orange, you should eat it, is actually where a lot of the bioflavonoids reside, and those are very good for your veins and your arteries, and good for your skin, and also good for your immune system. So don't be shy when you're eating an orange wedge. Eat the white part too. It tastes a bit bitter, but even that bitterness is good for you. So don't be shy about those things. Our ancestors probably wouldn't have wasted very much of that orange, and were probably eating even the white pithy part that you may be avoiding and getting a lot more benefits because they were doing so. So don't be shy to do that too. Okay, so I've got a bowl of broccoli and I've got a bowl of orange juice, and I'm just going to set those aside. I'm going to stay hydrated, of course. I got my lemon mint water. And so if the goal is to get the dinner on the table in half an hour, then I also want to make sure I am cleaning as I go, keeping things tidy. I don't want a big mess done at the end because I won't feel comfortable sitting down to eat if there is a big mess. So want to make sure that things are clean as you go. I'm going to use a cast iron pan, so I'm going to heat my pan up before I'm ready to use it. It takes a while to heat up. I'm not heating it up quite yet, but I am letting you know that I will be doing that. So just in case you're wondering when to heat your pan, it does depend on the type of pan that you use. So I used the juice of 2 medium oranges. It would also be lovely to include zest from the oranges. So zest is often less sour than juice. It can be quite lovely. You may want to use that. Normally I'd be cooking faster because I wouldn't be talking so much. I'm going to eyeball everything because I cook quite freely, but you can decide to use how much you think is appropriate for you. I would probably go for the right amount of sauce for this would be somewhere around a half cup of soy sauce. Mine's gluten-free. It's not particularly low sodium, so I'm not going to be necessarily adding salt, although the appropriate amount of salt is a chef's secret, so don't be shy if you need to add some salt to do so. I'm going to use about half as much rice vinegar as I use soy sauce. So I'm going to use about a quarter cup. I'm just eyeballing it. Now you probably want some sweetness in this. My everyday honey is actually a blueberry honey, so I think that might be a little odd in this particular case. If you have brown sugar, you could use that, or rapadura, or another kind of raw sugar that has a lot of good value to it, a lot of nutrition. You could use that. I might use molasses today, or I might use a bit of my manuka honey, which is quite a fancy, expensive honey. So I may do some of that. I'm also going to add some crushed chili flakes, so you don't have to add that if you've got little ones at home that don't like crushed chili flakes, or anyone that doesn't like crushed chili flakes. I'm going to add that and let them soak a little bit. So you can find a sweetness that works for you. I'm also going to maybe add a bit of a thickener, so something like arrowroot would work. You can also use cornstarch. So let's see here. So you can prep some cornstarch, or you can use arrowroot powder or tapioca powder. If you're looking to avoid cornstarch because you've heard that it's GMO, tapioca is also often GMO. So just so you're aware that tends to be true. And then I'm going to start by slicing my chicken. So I'm going to get all these things set aside and ready for me. And I'm going to slice up my chicken. So I do prefer to do the chicken last so that I don't need to get out more than one cutting board. I do have a cutting board dedicated to chicken and a cutting board dedicated to vegetables, etc. But on the days that I just use one cutting board, I do use it first for the vegetables and then later for the chicken. Now, I have one of my most popular posts ever on Quora is about chicken, should you wash it or not? So I did say in that post that I don't believe that you should rinse your chicken. However, I have read some really, really good information from people like actually Dr. Ben Lynch, ND, out of Washington, from the Seattle area. He is one of my favorite practitioners. I really respect his work, and he actually does recommend washing your chicken. So it's not that it's bad to wash your chicken. My only argument was on Quora, if you follow Quora, where people ask and answer questions, my only real point in saying that you don't need to wash your chicken is that you don't want to make a sink full of chicken juice and chicken bacteria and then have to deal with that situation if you're not going to be able to deal with that situation properly. So you do want to do that really well. If you're going to wash your chicken in the sink, you want to make sure you get rid of all the bacteria in the sink once you have done so. So once you cut your chicken into bite-sized pieces, you're going to want to probably wash your hands very well and just do make note, if you're rinsing your chicken, please pause the video and then go take the time to properly disinfect your sink, just like I will disinfect my cutting board when I am done doing the chicken on it. And so now you should have set aside your mix of flavor, which is going to be your sauce as well as your orange juice. You have your broccoli, you have potentially your orange zest if you're using that, and you've also got maybe some kind of thickener. So you might be using some kind of starch so that if you like your sauce thickened, you may then thicken your sauce. If you're going to use something like a cornstarch to thicken your sauce, then you do need to consider that the sauce will need to come to a boil in order to thicken. So don't skip that step. That could be important. All right, so I'm just disinfecting my hands here. I always make sure to get under the nails, back of the hands, around the hands, thumb, everywhere. So just make sure that if you're not doing that now, that you definitely do watch where you put your hands, and then, at the end, you also clean up properly. Thanks. All right, so now's the time when I might heat up my skillet and get it ready to go. I'm also going to hydrate again. So far, it's been 20 minutes since I decided what I was going to cook for dinner. Normally, this would go a little bit more quickly because I would not be talking to you the whole time, but hopefully talking to you has helped. You can also start the rice if you want to serve this with rice at the very beginning. So you would start this before you start doing everything else and let your food come up to room temperature. Part of cooking everything really, really well is that you always start with it at the same temperature, which is room temperature, before you start to cook. So getting your ingredients out well in advance is helpful for that. And that's part of the reason that you might want to do it. So another thing that you might want to do is you might want to blanch your broccoli before you saute it, if you're sauteing it. And that can be a really good thing to do, is blanching your broccoli. So blanching is just exposing it to boiling water until it becomes bright green. And you're not really cooking it. You're going to stop the cooking after 15 seconds or so just by immediately submerging it in cold water or some ice water. I may today steam my broccoli, so I'm just going to put a steamer inside of a pot and steam my broccoli. Because when water boils, it boils off chlorine, and because I don't really want chlorine in my broccoli, I'm going to use my purified water for my steaming, but I just happen to be very sensitive to chlorine, and so is my family, so I'm just going to do that way. And my 3 heads of broccoli just fits, so it's perfect for this meal. And I love this pot that my friend Morel gave me. Thank you, Morel. It's a Korean brand pot. So my skillet is coming up to temperature. I'm probably going to just use, I usually have olive oil, coconut oil, and camelina oil on hand. Those are some of my favorite. Maybe I'll use camelina oil today, I guess. I let my pan heat up for a while before I put the oil in it, because the oil doesn't have to be exposed to the heat for that long. So it's better for health. So that's part of why I'm doing it that way, adding it after the pan is already heated up for a bit. Oh, and I didn't prep my garlic. Oops, sometimes that happens. So I'm going to prep my garlic. I always keep my garlic in a jar that is closed, so the garlic is not exposed to the light. So one of the reasons for that is that when garlic is exposed to the light, you may see that it starts to grow those green sprouts. So you don't want it to grow those green sprouts. Those green sprouts can actually cause heartburn. I don't know if you've ever gotten heartburn from garlic, but those green sprouts are actually a cause of heartburn. They actually have some compounds that aren't so great for you. So even though most things are better when they're sprouted, your garlic is not one of them. So I avoid that by keeping the garlic in the dark. A lot of foods that are better stored in the dark with a bit of airflow. Garlic, potatoes, onions are all that way. So anyway, I just quickly mash out my garlic. You want the garlic to be exposed to the air, preferably for 5 to 10 minutes before you use it, because it actually develops a lot of its beneficial compounds while it's chopped and waiting to be exposed to the air. It's just developing some of the compounds. So there's a tip for you. Okay, so I'm going to get my chicken sauteing right now. If that's better. While that is cooking, I will start to tidy up my kitchen. I will add a bit of salt to my broccoli. I tend to keep a compost bag on hand. But if there's anything like this tiny little garlic clove, there's nothing wrong with that. It's just I can't really be bothered, honestly, to like deal with it because it's so small. I'm actually going to throw this in my stock bag because even though I'm not going to bother chopping it up, there's nothing wrong with it. So that can go in my stock bag. Earlier from today, I have some carrot peels. Those will also go in my stock bag. There's nothing wrong with the carrot peels. I'm just not going to be using them. Things that I actually don't use, like strawberry tops, can go into the compost bag. So I'm going to do a little cleanup. Here my chicken is sizzling back there. Not too high, though. Not going to denature those proteins or damage the oils. I'd love to hear from you in the comments, what some of your quick meals are, things that you can get on the table nice and fast. Definitely feel free to share that with everybody. In terms of, how long you're cooking your chicken here, usually it depends on the temperature and it depends on the size of your chicken pieces. So I have mine on medium high and my chicken is about this big and I'm going to cook it for 4 minutes before I add sauce. And then it'll cook for probably another 4 minutes for a total of 8 minutes to cook my chicken. I always use something non-reactive. This is bamboo. Don't want to use plastic when you are sauteing. Part of what you're trying to do when you're cooking is, of course, maintain a healthy body, right? And when you use plastic when you're cooking, it can very easily leach into your foods. And the problem with that is it can have phthalates, it can have BPA, BPS, and so you don't want to have any of those things leach into your foods. And it doesn't just happen when you heat foods in plastic. It can also happen if you freeze your foods in plastic. So unfortunately, it is very convenient to freeze things in Ziploc bags and stuff like that. Do be aware that those soft plastics can leach. You don't have to necessarily eliminate all use of plastic out of your life. Just offset those uses of plastic that are most important or convenient for you with times of not using plastic. So I don't recommend any of those steam in the bag meals that are available, or steam in the bag vegetables. Unfortunately, they're very convenient, but I wouldn't microwave my vegetables in plastic. That wouldn't be good. So this is continuing to cook. You can usually tell how your vegetables are coming by the color, so I don't need to pick up the lid because I can see that the green is brightening, and that's what I want. If you have young kids at home, it's a good habit to turn the handle of your pans away from the edge so that they can't pull the pot or pan down on them if they are curious. So if you have a small whisk, you probably want to whisk together all the ingredients in your sauce. Oh, I haven't decided on my sweetener yet, have I? I guess I have to choose a sweetener for this. I'll probably go with molasses. Maybe not. I'm feeling fancy, so I'm going to use some Manuka honey, but I don't want it to get too hot because that can denature the enzymes and actually damage the honey. And I want to get all the benefits of this beautiful, beautiful honey. So I'm actually going to wait until the end, and then I'm going to add it to get all the benefits of the honey. So how was your day today? You want to let me know in the comments. Do you plan your meals well in advance, or are you spontaneous? Do you just decide based on what you have in the fridge? I'm going to move my steaming veggies to the back, and my phone is ringing, so I better go take care of that. Be right back. Hi there. I'm good. How are you? I'm just cooking. I'm doing a video. Yeah, I'm doing a video while I'm cooking, or a cooking video. Yeah, while I'm making dinner. Yeah, I should probably cook, but do you want me to call you back in a bit? Okay. Okay, I love you too. Thanks. Okay, bye. All right, so I'm gonna take my starch and I'm gonna mix it into my sauce. I just moved my steaming veggies so that you could have a better view. If you want to add extra garlic, ginger, anything else, you certainly can, but I'm just leaving this very simple for today. I'm going to continue to clean up while this simmers down a little bit. As I mentioned before, if you want your thickener to thicken, it may need to come to a boil. So you may need to raise the temperature on your dish to let that happen, and then it should be nice and thickened. I'm also going to be serving this with some cooked brown rice that I had from yesterday. So I am cheating a little bit because that is easier. But I like to have cooked grains on hand for serving on a moment's notice. We don't eat a lot of grains, but we do eat our brown rice and our quinoa, and you know, we eat things of that nature. And it is definitely a way to improve the filling ability of your meal, especially if you have like a teenage boy in the house like me, or you know, who just loves carbs, or if you need to increase the fiber in your diet as well. So this meal is done. Placing a spatula across the top of a pot like this is an old trick. It doesn't let it boil over, in case you are not familiar with that trick. So my broccoli is ready, and I'm going to serve that mixed into everything that I've got here. Where did I put my, oh, here is my mitt. You always want to pour things away from you so you can avoid them splashing on you. In this case, it was really easy to control, but that's a good rule for safety in the kitchen. So there we have it. There's dinner. I will mix in some Manuka honey at the end to kind of sweeten it up. I'm going to taste it and see what I think. Of course, most people would add salt and pepper, but this is already got the red pepper flakes, so I may not need it. I also have red peppers, actual bell peppers in the fridge, so sometimes I might add something like that near to the end if I decide that something needs a bit more color. But since I added the oranges, that was my orange color for today. So I guess I need to taste this. So we have acid followed by heat and then followed by salt. So that is a pretty good balance. And we have a little bit of umami underneath. So I'm liking that. I may want to perhaps, this is quite wet. So I think it's definitely good served over something like the rice. But I'm probably gonna maybe mix in a little bit of honey more into my son's dish towards the end. I don't feel like I actually need any. I feel like it's quite good for me. But yeah, I hope that that is a little bit of an insight into the way that I might throw together a meal, the way that I might plan it. Again, I'm looking to get some green vegetables and some red or purple or orange at every meal. I'm also looking to make sure that the amount of vegetables is half the plate and the amount of protein is about a quarter, and the amount of starchy carbs or starchy vegetables is a quarter. So if I wasn't serving with brown rice, I would probably be serving with sweet potato or something. So we have a protein on the plate, a starchy on the plate, half of a plate of green and colorful vegetables that are non-starchy, and that is how this plate is going to sort itself out. So I hope that helps. Have a great rest of your night.